Welcome to Crappie Hippies at the Bench, an instructional video series on how to tie your own jigs, flies, and create your own fish-catching baits. Brought to you by Glasswater Angling for a better outdoors, makers of lead-free fishing tackle, inventors of Angle King, the Crappie Dueler, and home to hand-tied jester jigs, Ring King paddle tail grubs, lead-free jig heads, and more. Check us out at glasswaterangling.com. And now here's Crappie Hippie at the Bench. Hey everybody, Crappie here. Welcome to Crappie Hippies at the Bench. Good to see you again. I am so sorry I haven't put out videos here lately. I've been so busy with Glasswater Angling, which is my little lead-free lure company that I'm trying to build. It's just taken me away from many pleasures in life. But on the other hand, I have put my foot down and gone fishing. I didn't get to do much fishing in 18 or 19, probably half a dozen trips the whole 2 years there. So I'm really taking advantage of this summer and the pandemic and not being able to go places and do things. And one thing I can do is sneak out and go fishing here around these ponds around my house. And I've been hitting it pretty hard. Also, I'm still a correspondent with the Fish Nerds podcast, and I've been working hard with them and enjoying creating stories for the podcast, and that takes a lot of time and effort, especially if you're a newbie like me. So you can tell if my videos are kind of evolving and hopefully getting better as I learn to do video for YouTube. But that's no excuse. I had to, speaking of put your foot down, I had to put my foot down and get back to my friends on YouTube. I sure appreciate y'all. We're up over 1,000 subscribers, and that's fantastic to me. I know that seems like small potatoes to other channels, but every subscriber I get is special. Every subscriber I get is appreciated, and to be up over 1,000 is just wonderful. Thank you so very much. All right, let's get down to it. I had a comment. I think the gentleman's name was Greg, but I had a comment. Hey, do you know how to make underspins? And yeah, we can make an underspin. Now you can make an underspin by buying a do-it mold and just making a horse head underspin. Well, I had one laying here, but you know what a Roadrunner is. And you can do that. You can buy a mold for pretty much any bait, a spinner bait, a little George, a tailspin, anything you want. You can find a mold for it from Do It. Do It makes molds for all your what are called wire baits. So if it's a wire bait, spinner bait, underspin, tailspin, whatever, you can get a mold from Do It and make it, okay? But I know what Greg was asking. He was asking, hey, how do I make, a lead-free spinner on a jig head, and let's do that. Let's make a lead-free spinner on a jig head. Now, alrighty, so on the top of that little chart right there in that picture right there, we had the barrel swivel, classic brass swivel that we all have in our tackle box, the one that you see on the tackle store shelves on the hooks there at Bass Pro or your tackle shop or in the marina or wherever. We all know what a brass barrel swivel is. Now those also will come in black. I think it's a black nickel electroplate on those. The next one is the one you'll see on most of your spinner baits, your underspins, and so on. That's a crane swivel. That's what we're going to use today. It's a nickel-plated crane swivel. They also come with black nickel plate on them, and you can get them with in brass as well. So if you're doing a gold, you want a gold setup on your underspin, then you can certainly get a crane swivel in brass. And then the last one is your ball bearing swivel, and those are kind of expensive. They work really well. They come on the highest quality spinner baits and underspins. You wonder why certain like a fish head underspin costs so much, or a Strike King spinner bait costs so much. Well, that's because they're using extra special hooks and extra special swivels. And we're going to talk more about ball bearing swivels when we get to the end of this video. But right now we got it. All right, so we've got our swivels figured out, and now we're going to talk about blades here real quick. And what I got here is a number 1 nickel plated. It's a brass blade that's been nickel plated, and that is a number 1 Colorado. And Colorado's the kind of the spoon-shaped blade. This is a Lakeland 0. And you don't really want to go bigger than a 1. A Worth number 1 is about the same size as this. It's a little bigger. That's why I like this one better. It's a little smaller. For an 1/8 ounce underspin, in a Colorado blade, I like a 00, a 0, or a small 1. In the willow leaf, you're going to want probably somewhere between a 1 and a 2. And then on your Indiana, you're going to want between 000 or a 1. It's on, once again, on the small size as your very largest. And see, that what I'm talking about this is that we have 3 U.S. manufacturers of blades. 3 of the ones I know about anyway are Lakeland, Hagen's, and Worth, and they all put out fantastic spinner blades. But dang it, they don't size them the same. They're not a 0 from Lakeland is almost the same size as a number 1 from Worth, and Hagen's has theirs, sized their own way as well. And sometimes the sizes match, and sometimes they're off a little bit. It'll about drive you nuts. And then, of course, most of y'all, you're going to be getting them from Barlow's, Jan's, Netcraft, lureparts.com, and those companies tend to try and make sense of this spinner blade thing and help you out with charts and the comparisons between the manufacturers. Especially Jan's, I think, is real good about having test charts and so on. But the main thing about buying blades, just, don't sweat it too much. It's not the end of the world if they're a little bigger, a little smaller. The main thing is that you're going to have brass blades that can be nickel plated or black nickel plated or left plain brass, so you can get your colors. And then they're going to have, you can get color print blades and all that. And then you can get steel blades, which are cheaper and work just fine. They're a little lighter, all right? So, there's a factor there. And then, we get into your 3 basic shapes, and we're going to talk about that a little more in a minute. But if you want a slow spinning spinner that spins at slow speed, you'll want a deeper cup blade. Those tend to run a little more. We have 3 basic types of blades for our purposes here, and they're kind of the ones that all the other blades are based on. One is the Colorado, which I just showed you. One is the Indiana, which is a little bit different, and one is the willow leaf, which looks like a willow leaf. I mean, that's how it got its name, and we got a picture of them right here. Take a look. All your other blades, your MEPS, French blade, your Panther Martin wire through blade, your sling blade that Rooster Tail uses, your Oklahoma blade, your this blade, your that blade, they're all loosely or directly based on these 3 original basic blade designs. So lots of blades, lots of materials. You can get holograph print on them. You can get painted blades. You can have all kinds of fun. You can go broke buying blades, just like almost every other tackle, because we're all crazy fishers, and we all want our own look on stuff, and we all want to, get as much variety in these baits and catch as many fish as we possibly can. So lots of different blades out there, but keep it simple. We got 3, Colorado, Indiana, willow leaf. Start with those 3 and work out from there. Okay, so we're going to get together and make this darn thing. I'll geek out on blades. Maybe we'll do a Fish Nerds on it, or maybe I'll do a film for you on it. But right now, let's build this underspin. Okay, now, I'm going to piece of purple feather. I'll have to get that in a minute. Okay, I'm going to start this off, and I'm going to take this. I got an 1/8 ounce tin bismuth jig head that I painted with orange fingernail polish, then put a nice vinyl coat over the top of it. And that vinyl might interact with that fingernail polish if you dibble dauber, but if you just dip it in, let it drip off, then touch it to a paper towel to get the little nipple of vinyl that's going to want to form there. Get that off of there. You let that dry, and it's nice, it's great, and that vinyl really protects that fingernail polish, makes it last a lot longer. So a nice orange head, because we're going to tie this up. Excuse me. We're going to tie this up as a Birdie's bluegill. Now, I'm taking a number 10 swivel, which is as big as I want to go on an 1/8 ounce, and probably ought to be using a 12, but I want you to be able to see this. So I'm just going to take that number 10, and I'm just, taking it and just do that, one of the rings on it, one of the loops on it. It's going to put it on there. Now, I'm going to tie this one here. And this is where most people do tie up their swivels. But I know guys that'll put them back in here and call it a belly spin. and I've seen people fool with it, and you can experiment with it. It's kind of hard getting around the hook point and tying one clear back here. You can tie it like that. Heck, I've even fooled around and tied them up here like this and had a true tailspin. So you can play with this all you want. Enjoy your creativity there. Now, when we get in here, we're going to have to go dangerous. We're going to live dangerously. And we're going to, you want this level, or you can see it's going to give you fits and slide around. Okay? Now, we're going to live dangerously. We've got to take and tie this on with the hook point up, because that's the easiest way to make the swivel behave. And I'm going to wrap my thread bed on here, because that'll help my materials stay put. Let's just go down. Let's make sure we trap that tag end good. And see, I keep bopping the head there. And we're going to come on back, make them nice and even. And we're going to come on back, and I'm going to let it rest right there. I'm going to grab my scissors, and I am going to cut this tag end off because I don't need it for anything on this particular tie. Okay, now here's where you come in, and you come in on that swivel, okay, and you cross it over one way, and then you come back behind, cross it over the other way, and now it's just crisscross applesauce. I'm crossing it on this side of it, crossing on that side of it, crossing on my side, crossing on the other side, crisscross applesauce. We're going to crisscross that blade, and you keep an eye on it. You want it hanging in there kind of, you want it as straight as possible. Okay? And you let some, you can bring a wrap down behind, come at it this way, come at it this way, come at it this way, take your wrap down there, take it in behind, and now you've got it, and it's okay. See how it wants to cant a little bit toward the back, and that's fine. Okay, and then you're going to take, and you're going to bring this down out of harm's way, and I'm going to cinch this so it doesn't slip, and that way if I lose tension, I won't, but I got that seated in there just beautifully. And that's it. So now you've got your, and even though the top is still free, the connection to this loop is probably going to get jammed up with materials, but that's okay, because as long as this loop down here, sounded like a kid with his voice changing here. I've got a little frog in my throat here this morning. As long as this one down here stays free, we're in business. It's a mechanical bait. The parts need to turn, otherwise the spinner's just going to sit there. Now, you're perfectly valid at this point. Take your Sally Hansen's, do your knot here with some Sally's, and let it dry. I'm going to use now I could have been smart, and there's two ways. Could have been smart and started this tie out using the color of the chenille that I was going to use on the bait. But let's just say I hadn't made up my mind and I just wanted to get a bunch of heads tied up in advance. And so I tend to tie everything with black thread. Also, even though I'm going to use a chartreuse. Actually, what I'm going to use is this really cool New Age chenille, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. It's a chartreuse in purple. It's not necessary to always match the thread to the color of your body, to the color of your chenille. I know of a great tyer. Her name is Angel Blair. Her little company's called Riverside Custom Crappie Baits. She ties some of the prettiest hackle jigs you've ever seen, and the only colored thread she uses is gray. Because, she's like, if you do it right, your thread's going to get tied and get hidden behind your chenille. And the only reason she keeps some colors around is if she's tying up bucktails or tying up jigs, hair jigs for somebody that doesn't want a chenille body, they want a thread body. So that's one option. You can tie with just black or just white or just gray and not worry about it. Okay, especially if you're not selling jigs and you're not doing this and you're not doing that. So, and in proof of that, why don't I'm just going to stick with black. I was going to switch to chartreuse and start new thread in there, but you know what? To heck with it. Let's go with it. Let's just go with it. Now, we've got this done, and we've got that, and now we can turn it to the safe way, to like we'd tie in a regular jig, okay? And now this is going to be a lot easier to manage, and as you can see, it's canted toward the back, and that's just fine, because that's going to help that spinner blade turn. If you're real fussy about it, you can make sure, you know, you can use your thread to stand that up and make sure it's straight up and down, but I don't see any big advantage in that myself. Okay, so I'm going to get myself a nice purple feather. Remember, we're tying upside down, so we've got to start with our dark color. And y'all have seen me tie jigs before, so I'm going to tie this one really quick. It's Birdie's Bluegill. If you haven't seen this pattern, I've got a whole video on how to tie this. This is one of our favorite patterns here. But the main thing I want to show you is that I'm going to take excess material and I'm going to fold it over this way, because I want to keep as much material. I want to really trap that turkey boo on there, but I want as much material away from that swivel as I can. I do not want big gobs of material around that swivel. And then I'm going to take, I got some gorgeous turkey boo. Let me show you this. I have a new supplier. I'm using Nimrod's. He has a store on eBay, and I bought this ounce of fluorescent green chartreuse, or I think he just calls this color fluorescent green. But look at that. What a beautiful ounce. And this is what we call blood quill. So it has hardly any stem to it, has hardly any quill to it. Perfect size for doing jigs. This is exactly what you want for doing jigs. And he gives you, look at this, he gives you a big gorgeous ounce. I think it's 10 bucks. And I'm sure as heck going to get my money out of it and get plenty of jigs out of that bag of chenille. All right, so anyway, or did I say chenille? This is my whole problem. I keep calling things the wrong thing. Out of that bag of marabou. Out of that bag of boo. All right. All right, so I apologize. I have a real problem when I get doing these videos. I call stuff the wrong thing. Okay, and let's get some pieces of green. And I'm going to take and fold this way, and I'm going to batten it down good. Okay, and I'm pulling like crazy. Okay, I'm keeping that tension on. Now that's kind of a bicolor, but I kind of just want it to have a back streak. So I'm going to put a little more. Instead of just one in one bunch and one bunch, I'm going to put one bunch in two bunches. And I'm going to grab me even a little more here. This is a little darker, which is fine. And we're going to put these two bunches together. And I'm going to cut that over the table because, you know, I ain't going to worry about it. There we go. All right. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put that down in there. Okay. And I'm going to, that was at a proper length where I can finish it. Okay. And I'm pulling that tight. I'm pulling that tight, and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to really pull tight back here. So I got a big wad of material on there. That's going to make me a nice full bait. And then I'm going to come down here. Okay. And I'm going to come in here. And I don't want to change the position on that swivel. And I'm going to come right in here like this. And I'm going to catch this a couple turns. And I'm going to pull that tight. And that'll keep everything frozen. And my thread won't loosen up on me. And now I got a nice full tail on there. It's time to put the body on now. There's another thing that you are going to go crazy and go broke. New Age chenille. Now, New Age chenille was not invented by fishers. It is a chenille, of course, like all chenille, it was in the fashion business. And I think the way they make this, they lay one type of thread or one type of material one way, and then they lay the spangly, colorful part the other way across it. And then when it all gets twisted together, it comes out just gorgeous anyway. There is a million colors of New Age chenille. I love this color. It's called Mardi Gras. It's just a basic, nice green chartreuse with some purple in it. And what's not to love about this? And the great thing about Nimrods is instead of 3 yards, he gives you 5. So Nimrod's on eBay. I was using a company called Grandpa Bob's, but he wasn't treating me right. He has the cheapest prices, but you know what? Price isn't everything. You know, customer service and feeling like you're with a vendor that appreciates your business is more important to me. And Nimrod's is still very, very price-wise, very good. And so I'm using Nimrod's now. And there's Crazy Angler is another good one, although their website drives me crazy. All kinds of people out there. Okay, so I'm going to really, see, I kind of tucking this all in there. Normally, you would watch me lay this out and then, you know, wrap and counter wrap it. But I'm trying to keep everything on this side of the swivel and not go past that swivel with my thread very often. And now I've got that in there good and tight. Now, you've got to remember, we're going to come past the swivel, and then we got this gigantic lump, and I'm going to pull this tight. And we come up on this gigantic lump of stuff, okay? We're going to really get conscientious here and pull this tight. Because if you do not get your chenille tight on here, what's going to happen after you catch a couple of nice crappies or whatever on this is your chenille is going to want to start backing off. It's going to want to start backing off. It's going to back off your bait, and your jig's going to fall apart. And nobody wants that. And this is kind of tangled up, so I normally take things out and wrap them on a card if I have the time. I just didn't have the time on this one. Now I'm going to have to build this chenille up so it's okay, and you want to keep wrapping. See that slip around a little bit? I'm going to keep wrapping it. I'm going to keep pulling it. Okay, we're going to slide in under there. Slide in under there. Slide in under there. We're building it up. We're going to wrap. We're going to keep it tight. Keep it tight. Should have made sure. There we go. Now I got plenty of length. Being kind of a booger. Here we go. Tight. Build it up. Pull it tight. Pull those wraps tight. You don't want your wraps slipping around. Okay, and now you can see how little of that swivel now is sticking out and coming in here tight. Now, take and put just a couple of wraps. Your 210 denier is really, and this is where I'm pulling that thread hard, and I'm getting that final connection. All right, so there we go. We got a nice, beautiful body on there now. We'll put the New Age chenille back in its bag. I mean it. This stuff's the funnest stuff. It's a little more than your regular chenille, and I'm not sure how much difference it makes except to have more fun fishing and more fun with your baits and more confidence with your baits. So let's see if we can do like Angel Blair and make this wraps disappear in here, okay? And then I pull it down, okay? And then, of course, I like to throw on, especially if you guys starting out. And I know a lot of the pro tires are like, oh, you don't need this step. You just make sure your knots are good and you're good. And they're right. But this gives me more confidence that my bait's going to hold up. And if you're just learning your whip finish and stuff, to have some goop down in here and keep pulling that, it's just going to disappear. And then we're going to finish it with one more knot. And you want your jig to be nice and durable. So we're going to bring that over and make sure we don't catch that hook eye. And we didn't. And we're going to pull that down in there, and I feel that slip, and then boom, I just break it off. Alrighty, so there you go. Now, we got our jig tied. Okay, so we got our swivel sticking out. Now, what do we got to do? Well, we got to mount the blade on. And here's what you're going to need. Now, these are Xuron split ring pliers. And there's other split ring pliers out there. This is the brand to get, Xuron. And I don't get paid by Xuron. They didn't give me these pliers. I bought them fair and square. Oh, it's almost 4 years ago. And I've probably put together 4,000 blades and blade assemblies with these split ring pliers. and they still have great reflex in the spring. But you can see it looks like an eagle head on there. This part divides the ring, this part holds the ring and helps it be divided. But yeah, it's like an eagle. That was an eagle. But anyway, here it is, you know, coo, coo, okay? You want these instead of the cheapies. These are going to run you between $8 and $15, $16, worth every penny. And if you're like, well, I've got the all-in-one tackle pliers with the split ring thing on there, most of those are for really big split rings. And we're working here with a 0 split ring. So we need the best pliers. And you're like, well, Crappie Hippie, the male, and I don't know where to get them, and pandemic, I can't get out, and what am I going to do? Well, you can do them with a little tiny pocket, pocket knife blade. You can prop that open, and it's tough. It's heck. You know, and you don't want to make a career out of it, but if you want to build one of these today, then you can get it done with a knife blade. But by golly, get yourself some Zurons. Zurons are the best, and they're the ones you want. And make no compromise on this tool, because you're going to make a lot of underspins. Okay, so now we take that spinner, that split ring. That's a little tiny 0 split ring, and I'm going to open it up. And you see that's opened up like that. I'm going to open it up, and now I got to take my Colorado blade, and what I'm going to do is hold it flat. And then, I'm going to hold it sideways to get that ring on there. And then when I go to, then I'm going to flatten it out. And I'm going to turn, click. And I know it's come through the ring and it's hanging free. See, it's going to be nice and wiggly. You don't want it to be still trapped up in that ring. And while we're on it, let's talk about this ring. This is a stainless steel fine ring. Now there's regular rings and there's heavy duty rings and they're brass and they're nickel and they're made out of all kinds of stuff. But for hanging blades, you want fine stainless steel rings. And here's why. The other rings are made to hang hooks that are going to hold big fish, or hopefully hold big fish. You know, so you want a regular one, or you're going to even want a heavy one, you know, because you're working with the fish. Now we're just working with a blade. We just got to hold this blade up, so we don't have to fuss over that nearly as much. Fine rings have a better memory, and memory means it's going to, you know, go back to its original shape. So you can open this once, twice, whatever you need to do, and not have it spread and stay open on you the way you will with heavier wire. You've got to really be careful with standard rings and heavy wire rings, because they can give you fits. Now, so you can get these in nickel plate. You can get them in, stainless steel. You can get black ones. You can get also brass ones, brass plate on the stainless steel. This is what I use. They're actually a little cheaper. I love the corrosion resistance of stainless steel, and it's what we're going to use on this, and it's what I use most of the time. Okay, so what's easiest for me is to take and I see my thread kind of disappeared on one side but stayed apparent on the other, but I'm not going to fuss about that. Next time I'll use chartreuse thread and not worry about it. Main thing is that jig's going to stay tied. And of course, you get fancy and get a rotating vise or an articulating vise. You can always check to see how your thread's doing. Now, I've spread it again with my pliers. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to catch that bottom loop. Okay, and now I'm going to turn. Now I got to make sure that blade doesn't slip up in the ring and start coming out. And I'm going to keep turning, so I'm going to watch that blade. And I'm going to do it one more turn, click, and I felt it click. So now we've got it. We've got it hung, and we've got it done, and we're ready to go out and check this thing out in the test tank. Let's go get them. Okay. All right, you can see that just turning, and even going slow. It's going to still give you a little flippity. You know, and that's the thing about a Colorado blade. It has the most water resistance. It's the one you're going to feel. And we'll do a thing about blades here one of these days. But I like it. I like it. I could have made my purple a little more even. Got it kind of more purple on one side than the other, but I don't think it's going to bother the fish none. It's just going to kind of grade me down in jig tying class. A couple things about buying swivels. Any of them will work. Barrel swivels are fine. Crane swivels are what most people use. The thing about ball bearing swivels, if you're going to go with that expense, because you're going to be talking anywhere from 35 cents to $1 each for those ball bearing swivels, make sure you, and why? Because you want good ones. Now there's a lot of cheap ones coming out of Asia, and you don't want to get sucked down that road because it you know, tiny little bearings in there, and it's just like on the wheels of your car. You know what hell it is when one bearing goes out or starts flaking apart and it gets all that crud in there, and there's the squeaking and the carrying on, and your wheel doesn't want to turn, and it gets hot, and one thing leads to another, and then you're, you know, at the mechanic shop, or if you're so inclined like my neighbor Dan up the street, then you're sitting out under your shade tree doing it yourself. But you do not want, you know, so make sure you get a quality ball bearing swivel. And if you have trouble sliding that ball bearing swivel over your hook point, just make it a barbless hook. Just squish down that barb, okay? That's the only thing that'll be higher than the diameter of the wire, and go barbless. My friend Anna on Ice that I made on Instagram, she fishes up in Manitoba all the time. She lives up there in Minneapolis, and it's barbless up there. Manitoba's barbless, you know, you got to use barbless hooks, and she's got me converted, so. But whether you want to convert all your hooks to barbless or not, if you can't get your ball bearing swivel to slide over, try taking your needle nose pliers and squishing that barb. Alrighty, I'm stoked. There it is. Birdie's Bluegill, Mardi Gras style. We're in good shape. All right. How to do an underspin on a lead-free jig head. This has been Crappie Hippie, your tree-hugging redneck from eastern Kansas, saying tight lines and valentines. Peace out.